What is up guys, welcome back to SP Vids. In this video I've got the SP303 and the SP404sx, which is basically exactly the same as the A as well. And what I wanted to talk about in this video is basically a quick comparison between these two. I've had a few questions recently where people have said, should I get the 303 or the 404sx? And there's always these kind of questions running through beatmakers' minds as well, especially those that are looking to get into the SP game. So the 303 obviously has got a bit of a cult status because the likes of Dilla and MF Doom have put full tapes together on these, which sound absolutely incredible. Don't really understand how they managed to do it. And then you've got the SX, which is just kind of the new kid on the block. So you're thinking, should I go for a brand new one or one that's got this kind of legendary status in the hip-hop and lo-fi hip-hop world? So I'm going to go through some of the features and just explain the differences. Now, I will do a separate video about the sounds of these in comparison to each other. I don't want to put too much information in this video, so I might do that as a follow-up next week. But I just want to sort of talk about the hardware side of this. I think that's the right term for it, really, just the actual physical nature of these two devices. So the SP303, as you can see, it's got a very similar look, slightly different layout, and it's slightly smaller. And one of the first things to probably note is the fact that this thing cannot run on batteries. So unlike the SP404sx and the A, which has a slot on the back for batteries, which I'll just quickly show you, this here, so you can actually put batteries inside it. You can't power the SP303 on batteries alone, but there are solutions around that now. There's obviously power banks that you can use. You can use a power bank and run a cable to this in order to power it. So that is not actually the end of the world. That is something that can easily be resolved. But yeah, out of the box, obviously, batteries aren't an option with this device. I think another crucial thing as well with this one is the storage. So let me just get both the storage out of these. So with the SP303, these use a smart media card. I'm not sure of the voltage of this one, it doesn't actually say on this one, but you do require a specific type of smart card, I would imagine. If you are looking to get one and want to get a smart card, just reference the manual, it'll show you the ones that actually work with this particular device. And then on the SP404sx and the A, you've got the trusty SD card. So yeah, I mean, the smart media card is not something you come across in day-to-day life anymore, really. It's only reserved for kind of old digital cameras and old samplers like this. So this is something that you've really got to consider if you want to pick one of these up. If you like dropping things onto a card and putting them in here, you're going to have to buy some kind of adapter to be able to do that. And these definitely exist on Amazon. There's definitely adapters to be able to read smart media cards on your computer. But I mean, look at the size difference for a start. This is 16 meg and this is 32 gigabytes. So there really is no contest there. You're getting a hell of a lot more storage on the newer devices, and it's also just a lot more accessible as well. Most laptops will have an SD card slot built into them, and if they haven't, again, you can just pick up an adapter and yeah, you get an infinite amount of storage. You get an infinite amount more storage basically than one of these guys. But that being said, a lot of people like working with limitations. So if that's something that you like, if you like the limitation of not having that much sample time, then that's obviously a way around this. But yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the biggest differences really, and one of the reasons why I would most likely recommend an SX to a new beatmaker or someone that's new to the SP world is just because you've got that much more storage to play around with. But you know, you can do so many backup saves with this and save your beats, and you can just have loads of samples loaded into this. So that is a massive advantage. Okay, so what else? Button wise, one of the great things about the SP303 compared to the stock pads that you get with the 404sx is that the buttons feel really, really nice to play. So they've got a slightly softer feel to them, and yeah, they're just a lot nicer to play. They feel way better under the fingers, and they're not as buttony as the ones you get with the SP404sx. The stock ones that you get with the SX, they feel so much kind of like toggles, if that makes sense. They feel like they're off and on, whereas these actually feel a lot more like proper pads. So yeah, it's the same material for all of them. They've got a much sort of softer texture to them and a lot less click to them. They feel way better to play and much more towards the sort of MPC world of pads. Nowhere near that good, obviously, because this is, you know, it's a very primitive sampler. But yeah, definitely a lot more playable than the pads on the SP404sx. And that's probably another thing to mention as well, is obviously look at the difference in banks as well. So you have 4 banks on the SP303, and in each of those banks you've only got 8 pads. You've only got a total of 32 pads there. That was quick math. And I can't even be bothered doing the maths here, but on the SP404sx, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 10 banks of 12. Oh, that's 120 pads, isn't it? That's an easy one. So, you know, that's an insane amount of pads compared to what you get on the 303. And if you're anything like me, I like making a beat inside a bank on the 404sx. That's my workflow. I think if you picked up an SP404sx, that would be kind of a similar way you'd look at it as well. Usually have drums, samples, and some noises. I tend to work in a 1 bank per beat basis. That has changed a little bit recently, but I've spent a lot of my time working like that on the SP404sx. So when you get to the 303, you do have to be a bit more creative with the way you're using the banks. You can't obviously make it a full beat with just 8 pads. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be limiting anyway. But again, like I say, you know, some people love these challenges of older gear, so that might be something that you actually relish in, and you'll have to think of creative ways to use these banks. FX-wise, there's a different sound to them, which as I mentioned, I will do in a different video. The 303 definitely has a more buttery sound to it in general. Don't know why that is. It must be something to do with the circuitry, but yeah, the effects on this definitely have a more analog feel to them, if that makes sense. They just seem warmer and nicer. The SX seem a bit more like, I guess the word is like cheaper in a way, but that doesn't mean that the effects on this aren't good. They're still great on the SX, and you get a lot of choice as well. But yeah, there's something very, very special about the effects on the 303, and I think that's one of the big selling points of this, is that the EQ, the vinyl sim compression obviously is a famous one. They all sound really, really nice for this, you know, for a unit of this size. The sound you can get out of it is incredible, really. And the 303 has a lot of effects that the 404 has as well. So I'll just quickly go through, like 1 reverb, they're the same, 2 tape echo, 3 chorus, 4 flanger, 5 phaser, you know. So I'll do a quick screenshot, or you can pause the video here and you can have a look at the different effects compared to each other. So the 303 isn't that far behind the 404sx. Probably the main one I'd say is the DJFX looper. That's obviously quite famous on the 404sx. The stuttering effect is nice, and it's right there as well, so it's easily accessible. In terms of workflows, resampling on this is possible. Resampling on the 404sx is possible. One of the really nice features of the 303 is that you can resample and have audio from an external source coming in at the same time. Now that is crazy. I mean, I haven't even explored that side of the 303 yet. So what I mean by that is you could have a drum loop coming into the 303 from an external source, say like a drum machine or your computer. You can resample and play the samples over the top onto a pad. And when you listen back to that pad, it will have the drums and the samples laid over the top. So that's just such a cool feature that you can resample with the external source. You can't do that on the 404sx. It's weird that they remove some of these features that are just really useful. So I wish it had it on there, but it doesn't. And yeah, the 303 does have that, so that's a really cool feature. The 303 doesn't have copy and paste as far as I know, although I know sometimes there are little hidden shortcuts with these devices. So I think you just have to resample to copy. On the 404sx, obviously you've got the facility to be able to just copy pads, which is actually super handy. And you can move them around as well with Exchange, which is the function under number 2 here. That is another amazing feature. You don't get that with the 303. So if you want to move your samples around it, you have to resample them. It's just a mess, basically. So yeah, you have got more freedom on this to move pads around, copy and paste. Can't really do that with the 303. So that's another tick in the box for the SX or the A. They've both got the pattern select function, which the 202 didn't have. So the 303 is a bit of a step up, that it's got its own sequencer built in. And to be honest, I can't say a lot about the 303 one. I haven't delved into that much. That's something I really want to do in the near future. I want to build some beats with the pattern select in this. So yeah, obviously the pattern select on the 404sx, that's something I've spent a lot of time with over the last few months, and it's a bit tricky to get your head around, but once you iron out some of the issues, which are easy to do, it's very, very usable, and I've got a video on that. I'll try and remember to put a link to it in the top right, but I always say this in videos and forget. So yeah, if I do forget to do that, just search in my archive for pattern sequencer or pattern select, and the videos will come up about this one. In terms of inputs, etc., you're looking at a very similar setup. I hope this is still in focus on my camera. But yeah, you've got the line in and line out exactly the same, just phono. You've got the MIDI in, and you've got off and on, and the power as well. And then around the front as well, they're exactly the same. You've got the 2 3/4-inch jack inputs, one for an external source and one for your headphones. Now that's something that's really annoys me with the 202, is that it takes the 3.5mm jack headphone input. So every time I need to use that, I have to unscrew the adapter on my headphones to plug it in. Luckily with the 303, you don't need to do that. They upgraded it to the 3/4-inch. So I think that pretty much covers everything that I want to cover. There's probably way more detail I could go into about these two devices and their differences. But on the whole, they're the main kind of things that you have to look out for if you are keen on getting a 303 compared to an SX. So yeah, I hope this video helps, guys. If you've got any further points that I've missed in this video, please leave a comment below and let the community know. That would help me out massively, and it helps everyone else out as well. And if there's any questions that you want to ask that I haven't covered in this as well, just leave a comment below and I'll try and answer you as quickly as possible. But I do get a lot of questions, so just bear with me with them. I do get around to them eventually, usually. So yeah, if you've got a question, just leave it below and I'll happily try and answer that for you. But that's it for this one, guys. I hope this was useful. If you're thinking of getting one or the other of these devices, I hope that answers a few of your questions, and I'll be back with more content very soon. Head to spvids.com if you want to support me. A huge thanks again for 1 million total views. Absolutely crazy stuff. Massive thanks to you all for the support since the start of the channel. And yeah, I'll be back very soon. So keep making beats, guys. Peace.